to switch gears and talk more about you as an artist and your passion for art in general. And
Okay.
so how did you get into art? What was it? Was it maybe from school, or maybe you were inspired by your friends seeing them draw? Because I know you, based on your Instagram, you do photography. I don't know if you're still doing photography now, but
Mm.
yeah, what was that like? What was that little spark that got you into art?
Um, hmm. It's this is gonna be kind of a loaded answer.
Mm-hmm.
I would say it was because it was a multitude of things, you know. I would say the first thing that ever inspired me was Michael Jackson. I grew up in a very loving Michael Jackson household, so I was
Yeah.
surrounded by Michael Jackson's music and his music videos 24/7 almost, it felt like.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved it. And so when I was, very, very young, maybe like 5 or 6 years old, I'd say that's when I became conscious of it, and I
Mm-hmm.
reached a point where I was thinking to myself how much I just wanted to be like Michael Jackson at some point. I wanted
Right.
to reach that level of creativity and um, musicianship and the talent with dancing.
Mm-hmm.
So I started practicing. I would watch all of his music videos. I'd practice all the dance moves. I'd learn all the routines. I'd sing along.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, I got entered into my elementary school's choir, so I was a part of the choir, and then I became like one of the leading voices of the school choir,
Right.
and I started learning how to play the guitar around that time as well. So I started playing guitar, and art came about probably also in elementary school because I saw my older brother. He's 3 years older than me, but he got invested into art. For
Mm-hmm.
him, I know he was inspired by anime. He loved manga, he loved anime, so he started getting into drawing because of that. He wanted to replicate the characters he would see in the manga, in the anime,
Yeah.
and I was just inspired by him. I saw my older brother doing these drawings. I was like, that's kind of cool. Let me do that too. So that's where I started drawing, but eventually I started getting more into the more, I guess you could say, still life aspect of that form of fine art, where I,
Mm-hmm.
in middle school, became invested in my art class and my art club. I started learning how to paint more efficiently, how to draw a little bit more accurately, doing still lives, portraits, and so adding that plus starting multiple bands for the music thing, going back to the music thing, like starting multiple bands.
Mm-hmm.
Um, all of them failed, but it was just nice to be a part of a band for a little
Right.
while,
Right.
even if
Right.
it didn't last that long.
Mm-hmm.
And then middle school was also around the time that I began to pick up the other more digital forms of art. I got into photography in middle school. That came about because my family had this little cheap digital camera, but I was bored. I
Mm-hmm.
felt lonely and depressed. So I picked up my skateboard, picked up that little cheap, crappy digital camera,
Right.
and I went around the block and just took pictures of things that I thought looked nice or looked pretty. And eventually I started practicing more and more. I got involved in a photography class in high school, so I started learning how to uh, take photos on like a film
Right.
camera.
Yeah.
Um, Playing around with settings like the aperture, ISO, shutter speed, really just knowing my way around a camera. Um, Before I switched back to digital photography with a DSLR, I had a Nikon D3300.
Mm.
That was the one I was playing around with for a while. And then middle school was also the time I got into Photoshop too and
Right.
making little
Yeah.
movies.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd use my little iPod Touch
Yeah.
to go around and same thing, I'd just
Yeah.
record things that I thought looked cool or looked pretty, and I'd find a way to edit them, chop them up. Um, and by the time I graduated high school, I was so invested into all of these things that I actually ended up becoming a completely certified Adobe associate. So I'm
Nice.
technically certified in like all areas of all Adobe software. So editing music, editing movies on Premiere, whatever, I I'm there.